senses still held in fell magic's grip. Unconcerned about magic of any kind, the bay and white patchwork-colored gelding picked his way down the narrow mountain pathway and, as the slope turned gentle, onto a dirt track that in turn widened into a cobbled road. Shortly thereafter, the small village Tyr glimpsed from the hills above emerged from beneath the trees. The wet stone houses, so different from the wooden villages he'd ridden through these past 9 years, reminded him of home, though there was a softness to the architecture that his village did not have. It wasn't home, but it was a proper village. It would have a market square, and that's where the inn would be. He envisioned a small, warm room, bathed in golden light from the fireplace and torches, some place where a soldier could get a good, hot meal and stay warm and dry. As he drew closer to the town market, the smell of smoke and roasting meat filled the air. It was reflex only that had him loosen his sword and made the gelding flex and snort. Too much war, too many villages burned. Tyr murmured to Skew, reminding him they were done with that part of their lives, though he could not make himself re-secure his sword. As they turned into the market square, he saw a burning pyre. Evening was an odd time for a funeral. Tyr frowned. This close to home, they would bury their dead, not burn them. He looked through the crowd and noticed there were no women or children watching the fire. It was an execution, not a funeral. In most places where the memories of the shadowed lingered, they burned witches. Not the high-born wizards who worked their magic for the nobles who paid them. They were above village justice. But the healers, hedge witches, and travelers who offended or frightened the wrong person could find themselves in serious trouble. When such a one burned, the village women would watch from darkened windows, safe from the wrath of the dead. Strangers like Tyr sometimes found themselves taken for travelers or hedge witches. Still, he was armed and had hard coin to pay his way, and from the smell of smoke and flesh, this village had already slaked its bloodlust. He rested his hand on his sword hilt and decided it would be safe enough to stop for the night. Tyr rode by the pyre with little more than a glance, but that quick look had told him that the man in the center of the burning wood had been killed before the fire was lit. A dead man was beyond aid. The sullen crowd of men gathered around the pyre quieted further as he crossed near them, but when he took no notice of them, they turned back to their grim entertainment. As Tyr had expected, he found the inn on the edge of the village square. There was a stable adjacent to the inn, but no one manned it. Doubtless the stable boy could be found in the crowd in the square. Tyr unsaddled Skew, rubbed him down with a rough cloth, and led him into an unoccupied stall. Looking for hay, he noticed a handcart bedecked in traveler's trappings, leather fringe and bright paint, sadly faded. So the man they'd burned had been a traveler. Tyr walked past the cart and took a forkful of hay back to Skew, though his eagerness to spend the evening in the tavern had ebbed considerably since he'd ridden into the village. The nearness of violence had set his nerves on edge, and the quiet stable soothed him. He lingered until full darkness fell, but finally the thought of something hot to eat overcame his reluctance to face people. As he walked out of the stables, only a few figures were left silhouetted against the light of the fire. Guards, to make sure the man didn't come back to life and flee, Tyr supposed. He'd never seen a man with his throat slit come back to life and cast magic. Oh, he'd heard the tales, too, even told a few himself. But he'd seen a lot of death, and in his experience, it was final. When he entered the tavern, he was taken aback by the noise. A quick glance told him that no one had noticed him enter. So he found a place between the stairs and the back wall where he could observe the room for a moment. He ought to have realized that the mob wouldn't have dispersed so easily. After a killing, most men sought alcohol, and the inn's common room was filled to bursting with men, most of them half drunk.